There are stones in this world so massive that even today, with cranes, engines, and computers, moving them would be considered a major engineering challenge. Some of these stones weigh hundreds of tons, a few approach 1,000. And yet, they were quarried, transported, lifted, and placed thousands of years ago, long before electricity, steel machinery, or modern engineering existed. No motors, no hydraulics, no advanced tools, just human hands, wood, rope, and an understanding of forces that modern society often underestimates. The real mystery is not whether ancient people could do it, but how they understood enough about the natural world to make it possible. All across the planet, we find temples, monuments, statues, and structures built from enormous blocks of stone. These are not isolated examples, nor are they limited to one culture or one region. From the deserts of Egypt to the mountains of South America, from the hills of Turkey to the Mediterranean coast, ancient builders worked with stone on a scale that still commands awe today. Many of these structures are dated to periods when humanity is often imagined as primitive or technologically limited. Yet the physical evidence tells a very different story. Some of the earliest known examples of large-scale stone construction come from sites in modern-day Turkey. At Göbekli Tepe, dated to around 11,600 years ago, massive T-shaped stone pillars rise from the earth, some weighing up to 10 tons or more. These stones were carved, moved, and erected by people who lived long before metal tools, the wheel, or written language. Coordinating such work required planning, leadership, and shared knowledge passed through generations. And while these monuments are extraordinary for their age, they are only the beginning of what ancient societies would eventually achieve. Thousands of years later, civilizations such as the Egyptians, Greeks, Romans, Mayans, and Incas would take stone construction to levels that still challenge modern understanding. Among them, ancient Egypt stands as one of the most iconic examples. The Egyptians carved colossal statues and obelisks from solid stone, some weighing hundreds of tons, and transported them across long distances. Unlike the Romans, however, the Egyptians left very few detailed records describing exactly how they accomplished this. Their methods were practical, refined through experience, and passed on through tradition rather than written manuals, which makes their achievements appear even more enigmatic today. Most scholars agree that the Egyptians relied heavily on the Nile for transportation, using boats and barges to move heavy stones over long distances. On land, massive blocks were likely placed on large wooden sleds and dragged across the ground using ropes and coordinated human effort. Depending on the size of the stone, this could involve dozens, hundreds, or even thousands of people working together in precise rhythm. Over centuries, their techniques evolved, improved, and sometimes disappeared entirely as dynasties rose and fell across nearly 3,000 years of continuous civilization. While the Egyptians remain mysterious, the Romans offer us something different: documentation. The Romans quarried and moved some of the largest stone blocks in human history, including the famous trilithon stones at Baalbek, which weigh an estimated 800 tons. Nearby lies another block, often called the Stone of the Pregnant Woman, weighing over 1,000 tons and never fully removed from its quarry. Roman engineers recorded their methods in writing, art, and architecture. They used cranes, pulleys, winches, and massive treadwheel cranes powered entirely by human labor. Some of these machines were capable of lifting several tons repeatedly, day after day with precision and control. Modern experiments have helped demonstrate that these ancient techniques were not only possible, but highly effective. In a well-documented experiment, a granite obelisk was raised using nothing more than sand, gravity, ropes, and wooden supports. By allowing sand to flow gradually from beneath the stone, the obelisk was lowered into position slowly and safely, guided by simple structures and controlled by human hands. This method required no complex machinery, only patience, observation, and a deep understanding of how natural forces behave when carefully managed. What makes these techniques so remarkable is that they did not disappear with the ancient world. In the 20th century, massive stone columns weighing hundreds of tons were moved using wooden rollers and human labor alone. Individuals like Edward Leedskalnin demonstrated that even a single person, armed with knowledge of balance, leverage, and center of gravity, could move multi-ton stones and construct monumental structures. These examples show that the true power behind these achievements was not technology, but understanding. The same principles apply not only to stones, but to entire buildings. Throughout modern history, engineers have successfully moved structures weighing thousands of tons without damaging them or disrupting daily life inside. Buildings have been lifted, rotated, and relocated while people continued working, eating, and living within their walls. The forces involved were immense, yet the methods relied on careful planning, patience, and respect for physics rather than brute force. When we look back at the ancient world, it becomes clear that the greatest advantage those builders had was not advanced tools, but a profound relationship with the physical world. They understood friction, gravity, balance, and force not as abstract equations, but as lived experience. Most of the stones used in ancient structures were quarried on-site or nearby, meaning they never needed to be transported far. Combined with clever engineering and collective effort, even the heaviest stones became manageable. In the end, the story of ancient stone construction is not one of mystery or lost magic, but of human ingenuity. Long before modern technology, people learned how to work with nature rather than against it, and in doing so, they built monuments that have outlasted empires, survived millennia, and continue to remind us that sometimes the most powerful tools are knowledge, patience, and time. When we look at these ancient stones, whether in Egypt, Rome, Turkey, or across distant islands, what stands out is not mystery or magic, but patience. These structures were not built in a rush, and they were not created by shortcuts. They were the result of careful observation, trial and error, and a deep understanding of how weight, balance, friction, and gravity behave in the real world. Long before engines and steel, people learned to work with nature instead of against it, using simple tools in remarkably intelligent ways. What these examples show us is that human ingenuity does not begin with technology. It begins with curiosity, with watching how sand flows, how stone pivots, how leverage multiplies force, and how coordinated effort turns the impossible into the achievable. Across cultures separated by oceans and thousands of years, we see the same ideas repeated again and again, not because knowledge was shared globally, but because physics is universal and careful observation leads to the same solutions. In many cases, the stones themselves did not need to be moved very far. Ancient builders chose their sites wisely, quarrying nearby, shaping carefully, and transporting only what was necessary. This wasn't inefficiency, It was intelligence, a reminder that building on a massive scale does not always require more power, but better planning. Today, we can move entire buildings with hydraulic systems and computer-controlled machines, yet the principles remain unchanged. Weight is still weight. Gravity still pulls. Balance still matters. Modern engineering did not replace ancient knowledge, it expanded upon it. And when we strip away the machines, what remains is the same understanding that ancient builders mastered thousands of years ago. So the next time you stand in front of an ancient monument and wonder how it was built, remember this: the past was not primitive. It was observant, methodical, and deeply human. And sometimes, the most impressive achievements are not those made with the most advanced tools, but those made with the deepest understanding. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed this exploration of how things were built before technology, consider subscribing to the channel. More stories like this are on the way.